Hello there, and welcome to the latest edition of Live Music and Me, a series of video shorts where we talk to some special guests about their gigs and the memories from them. Today's guest is the Scottish writer musician Chris Thomson. Hope you'll enjoy this. Cheers now. Hi Chris, how you doing?
Hi, Brian. Very well, thank you.
Good man. Thanks very much for
Yes.
doing Live Music and Me. Are
Yeah,
you
my
um, are you
pleasure.
ready
Pleasure.
to go?
I am indeed as ready as will ever be. Yep.
Excellent, me too. Okay then, so let's crack off. The first gig that you ever went to?
First gig was David Bowie at the Glasgow Apollo, June 1978. As I remember, the pal I was going with wasn't quite as big a Bowie fan as myself, and he was a bit pissed off because the Argentina game, I think it was the semi-final of the World Cup that year.
Yeah,
So I'm just thinking 78. Of course, that's the Archie Gemmill Gold
Archigemo,
World Cup, isn't it? Yeah,
absolutely.
that was.
Yeah,
I hadn't really realised that time, but yeah, that was Bowie at the Polo, fabulous. Row 20, great venue. I'm sure you were there
I
yourself, and
was. Yeah,
it's
not to the Bowie
not
gig.
that
I might
particular
add.
one, but
No,
yeah, the
no.
the Apollo, yeah, it was
Yeah,
a brilliant venue, much missed. So
much
that was the
missed.
first one. Yeah,
There's some first gig
good.
that Chris.
Oh yeah, it was. It was the old when you had to send away with a postal order to Harvey Goldsmith or something. You waited for weeks, so then the ticket arrived. It was
Yeah,
like the holy grail. It was absolutely brilliant.
absolutely
Yeah,
fantastic.
great show,
Great
great show.
show, brilliant.
Yeah,
So the last gig that you went to?
and most recent last gig was Brian Jonestown Massacre at
Hmm.
the Barrowlands just a week or two ago,
Yep.
which was a great gig. Yeah, very contrasting. It's the thing about a band like that is it's almost like just it feels like one song, but once you get into the zone,
Yeah,
you're just in that zone, and I enjoyed that.
yeah. I think there's a few of the guys from the sort of Glasgow music scene were there. I know. I think Ian Smith might have been there
Yeah,
actually.
well, he
Um,
couldn't make it. He was meant to be
all
there.
right. Okay.
Graham
Graham.
from Graham Skinner was there. Yeah, in fact, I was there with him, and we both really enjoyed it. Uh, One person didn't enjoy it so much. There was a part of the whole thing, whether it's premeditated or it's part of the act or just it happens, but the band often argue on stage quite a lot. Seems
Right.
to be part of the thing. And there's a long pauses. And so it was a little bit heckling, a little bit of unrest in the crowd. And I did hear one particularly loud heckle that involved the F word very loud and clearly. And then sort of half an hour later after the show was hanging about, the crowd fills out and I met a guy called Martin McCarthy, who's very big in the Blue Nile Facebook
Okay.
fan page group. He said, "Oh, I'm here with PJ from the Blue Nile." He said, "Oh, we had a bit of a run in there. We were almost thrown out. It was PJ that made the shout." And sure enough, PJ came up a few seconds later and was like, "That's the worst effing gig I've ever seen in my life." And Martin and I, oh, we really enjoyed it, but
Yeah.
yeah, it didn't go down too well. It was, it wasn't for everyone.
No.
It seems,
No.
but there we go. Yeah,
Good
but the
stuff.
antithesis of a Blue Nile gig would have to be said.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
So a gig that most surprised you, good or bad?
Uh, oh, hang on. I'll just stop that. I thought, right, there we go. Um, I did get a bit of a surprise. I went to see Van Morrison quite a
Hmm.
number of years ago, probably in the 80s, at the Astoria, sorry, Dominion Theatre in London, Tottenham Court Road. And there was a sort of announcement just before curtain went up, just to basically say, just to let you know, ladies and gentlemen, Van Morrison's had a very bad accident, and he will be conducting the show. And this was said without any, just absolutely straight. He just said he'd be conducting the show, the performance, um, from a seated position. And sure enough, the thing went back, and Van Morrison's just sitting there with his leg up in a stookie, and that he didn't reference it for the rest of the show. But that was a surprise. Yeah, that was a very last minute. I think he just taken a nasty fall or something. But
Yeah.
um,
I did see the
yeah,
Strokes at the Leeds Festival, and
uh,
the lead singer had just broken his foot,
right.
and he came out and sat in a big kind of like a big high chair throne thing for the whole gig.
I don't
It
remember
felt a bit
hearing that one,
bit surreal
but
at a Strokes
yeah,
gig, as you can imagine.
yeah, yeah. I imagine he's generally a more athletic performer than Van Morrison. So with Van, it didn't really make that much difference, to be honest. It was just the visuals were odd.
Yeah,
And of course, at the end of the show, he couldn't leave the stage as such. The curtain, I think the band the curtain just closed. So it was good. It was added another dimension.
absolutely.
And that particular show, I think it was the first time in years he played a lot of Astral Weeks, which is probably my favorite Van Morrison album. So yeah, it was a surprising in that front too.
Maybe he should hurt his foot more often then.
Yeah, exactly.
Play some better songs.
Play some better songs. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first gig that you went to with a partner.
I think that was Lloyd Cole and the Commotions when they got back together again. Must have been sometime in the 90s, late 90s, and we actually saw them, I think, twice within a week. They played a warm-up gig somewhere in Bath Street. I can't remember the name of the club, but it was kind of 300 people in a small club on Bath Street in Glasgow. So the intimate one, then within a few days or the week, they played at Barrowlands. So that was the first gig with my partner. Yeah,
it's a pretty good one.
It's a good one. Yeah, they were great. Yeah. It's a shame they didn't do more. I think it was just the logistics of taking a full band on tour again. But yeah, it was great to hear them as a full, 5-piece. I think they were playing as.
What was your partner's take on it?
Yeah, she loved them. She'd been a big fan of rattlesnakes back in the day. Yep. So
good stuff.
Yeah, it's a good one all round.
A gig that you had a ticket to but missed.
Yeah, that's a sore one. It was Jeff Buckley at the Garage. It wasn't. Yeah, it's my friend David was part of Regular Music at that time. He said, "Oh, you've got to see this guy." I think he'd played at the Bell Angel in Edinburgh,
right?
Month or two preceding that, and he said, "Oh, this guy's amazing." And I can't remember. I don't know. Just something came up, and I was, "Oh no!" I phoned my friend Ian, who, "Look, do you want to take this guest place for Jeff Buckley?" I'm not, but look, with hindsight, I made the wrong call. I really regret missing that one.
When would that have been?
That would have been. It would have been. I think it was before his album came out, or
right, early 90s, or
maybe
something.
Early 90s. Yeah, probably about 92 or something. Yeah, and of course I heard it later. It was sensational.
Of course,
and as guest later that year, I got the album and absolutely loved it.
Yeah, the gigs that you miss are always sensational, aren't they? That's
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, a bucket gig in the past that you wished you'd got to?
Yeah, well, I think I would go with something like the Velvet Underground at Max's Kansas City. Partly was I like the Velvet Underground, but I've been watching a tip off from Ian Smith of the Last Night from Glasgow label. He said the best comedy of the last 10 years, a bit of hyperbole, but he recommended the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel as a comedy, and I've vaguely heard of it, but I've been binging my way through that at the moment. Absolutely fabulous. But one particularly great thing is this sort of capturing of late 1950s, I think we're now into the 60s, New York. Costumes, the music, the whole city's captured. Now, I know the Velvets and Maxes is maybe 10 years later, but it gives me a hankering for going back to an older New York. So yeah, Velvet Underground playing at Max's Kansas City in the residency would be a pretty good time machine bucket list one. Yeah,
they've been quite popular on the Q&A, as you can imagine. The
Velvets, I did imagine, as that one
came up. Yeah,
absolutely. I was thinking 69 Live is the other one that might have.
Yeah, absolutely.
Various, but I think it's the New York connection to Max's.
Yeah, no, they have been absolutely
fabulous. Yeah, good.
Okay, the best support act you've ever saw?
Quite an easy one. That would be Joy Division supporting the Buzzcocks. Again, a lot of people seem to. I mean, I know there's 3,000 people in the Apollo, but it's amazing the amount of people I've spoken to who were also at that gig. The Buzzcocks were at their early peak, and Joy Division they'd just done the whistle test that week. I think She's
Right.
Lost Control. So I'd seen the clip. I thought, what the hell is that? Amazing. And it was just luck would have it. They were supporting the Buzzcocks a few days later.
Yeah.
They absolutely, it was something like a 10 or 15 minute set. It was just
Yeah.
just incredible. It was like, yeah.
Yeah.
And we got heavily into Joy Division. My friends and myself, we all went into a real Joy Division phase over the next couple of years.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't play an awful lot of live gigs, so that was,
No,
you know, that was,
no,
you're quite lucky in some ways to see them, I think.
exactly. And
Yeah.
I think what they did shortly after that was some headlining stuff. I don't know if they came back to Glasgow, not sure, but yeah, it was great to. It was a great gig all around. I mean, I loved the
Yeah.
Buzzcocks at that time, and
Of course. Yeah.
superb.
I think on one of our previous live music and me's that Douglas McIntyre, I think he might have picked that as a gig that he had a ticket to but missed.
Oh no,
I need to go back and check that.
yeah,
He
to
definitely
check that,
referenced,
yeah.
I think it was the Buzzcocks and someone else at the
Uh,
Apollo that he referenced.
that would
So
must have been it. That would have been it, I think.
that
Yeah,
would cheer him up that you managed to get
yeah.
there, right?
I did see the Buzzcocks round about that
Yeah.
time, but I don't remember the support. You know, no
Yeah.
offense, so it can't have been. It certainly wasn't up there with Joy Division.
No, I bet it wasn't.
In fact, I think it was. I think it was might be a band called the Zones, a Scottish band.
Don't know.
Saw them support someone around that time.
Very
Anyway,
good.
yeah, Douglas lost out on that one.
He
Definitely
did
missed out.
indeed.
Yeah,
Well, I'll mention that one to him.
yeah.
Okay. A gig that made you miss the last bus or train home.
That's it. That's a tricky one. I don't think I come up with it. There's nothing that hasn't occurred to me.
Okay.
Is that an acceptable answer?
No, that's fine.
That's never
Absolutely.
happened.
But
I've always,
lucky you.
just gone for yeah. No, just I've always been within, the furthest I've ever lived from the centre of town was 7 or 8 miles, Uddingston. So there was
Yeah.
always the taxi option.
It came
So
up because
took a lot,
when we were doing our questions with a friend, and we went to see Big Country at the Barrowlands on Hogmanay. I think it was about 85 or something like that.
Yeah, okay.
And it was amazing, but it finished the back of one. And of course, we hadn't even thought about how we were going to get home.
Back, yeah.
So we basically wandered the streets of Glasgow, and it was a van, I think. It was some sort of delivery van or something, gave us a lift down the road.
Good. That's good of them.
Later that night, so.
Yeah. That's all part of the fun, isn't it? That is
it was, but
after once you warmed up and thawed out.
Yeah, we're a little bit drunk, and then we were sobering up, and you can
sobering
imagine.
up as the temperatures plummeted.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. A bucket gig that you are still waiting to go to?
Well, I've never seen Bob Dylan, and that would,
right.
I was a bit peeved that I missed the recent shows at the Armadillo in Glasgow, because I heard it was fantastic. They did a couple of nights, so I would love to see Dylan. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I've never saw him either.
I
was slightly worried about that. You know how he sort of does reinterpretations of a lot of his songs. So I was never entirely convinced I wanted to see that. But yeah, you're right. You should see him, right? You know.
Yeah, it's one of the greats. I mean, I suppose when I started discovering music, he wasn't a particularly, you had to overcome there was a real prejudice against him in the punk era and all the rest of it. And he went very religious at that time with albums which I believe are nowhere near as bad as we were being told at the time. What was the Street Legal? Street Legal. Yeah. What was the really very, very Slow Train Coming? That was the one that I remember coming out and got slated. But
that's right.
When I look at who was slating it, it was like hardcore 18-year-old journalists from the NME or something, and it was not Dylan's. Yeah. And they're probably massive Dylan fans now, as am I. It just took me a while to get there because I was so primed against him from what I was reading when I was 15, 16. It was just that reaction, and then you realise, wow, how amazing.
You had to kind of pick a side really at that age, didn't you?
You did, yeah. It was also very selling out, but it was all part of the game.
I know.
Yeah.
The band or the artist that you've saw the most?
Well, I think we're probably back to Van Morrison again.
Okay.
For some bizarre reason, because I've had a bit of a love-hate relationship with Van Morrison, and probably more hate than love, really, in the last 20 years. So I went through a big phase in the 80s where we were signed to the same record company, so I could get freebies. I mean, that Dominion gig I mentioned earlier was one,
Yep.
and with I don't know if there's a double answer, but just remembered an earlier, my first serious girlfriend back in the early 80s. That was my big cachet, was to, I've got guest list for Van Morrison at
Yeah.
the again the Dominion, and we sort of travelled from Glasgow. You know, it was a big the big romantic gesture. That was a good gig. So I loved some of his 80s shows. Then I saw him in the early 90s at the, not a great venue, one of the rooms in the SECC,
Yeah.
one of the small, about 2,000 people, and I just hated it.
Yeah.
It's just, he was so arrogant and dismissive, disinterested, and I kind of thought the music was, it was like well played, you know, pub rock
Right.
or something. I just thought, I swore never again, but I broke that pledge to the Kelvin Grove bandstand
Of
things
course.
this
Yeah.
year, and
Yeah.
actually was very good.
Yeah.
For the most part, towards the end, he still reverted to being a bit cabaret about it all, and because he was throwing in some tunes that were sort of deep cuts, you could say, some more obscure. I thought, oh, that's great. All we needed now is to send the band off and give us Sweet Thing or something, him in an acoustic.
Right. Yeah.
I thought that's, part of me was thinking that's where he was headed, and then it just, the last 15 minutes were just, you know, a couple of, I think he did Brown Eyed Girl, which apparently never does, but then he strikes up into Gloria, and just knew it's the same ending he's done for every other gig at cinema. And I'm not a massive fan of that particular track, and he buggers off after a few minutes. The band noodled about for about 20 minutes while he's in the limo off to Hotel du Vin, as it's now called.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
but yeah, I'm glad I saw him. I kind of broke the jinx. It was worth seeing him again.
Good.
And it's such a great setting for a gig, that
It's
actually.
amazing. Yeah.
If it's dry, as it was that night,
Yeah.
in Van Morrison in the pouring rain outside in Glasgow. But no, it was nice sunny night, gorgeous.
Good. And talking about sort of great gigs then, so what would your best gig be as a performer? The one you remember the best, or the one that's your fondest of, or?
Well, I think it's the last time we played in Edinburgh, it was about 2016, was just before the Electric Circus closed.
Okay.
And that was, for some reason, stuck in my memory as just being, we're thinking, oh, it's an Edinburgh crowd, can be difficult. The venue didn't necessarily look that great when you're doing a sound check. It felt quite kind of boxy, and I don't know, this is, I guess it was really low expectations, but something clicked. And it was the last of a short run of shows, so that's kind of liberation of, let's give whatever we've got left to give on the night. The crowd were in the opposite what we'd expected. We're just incredibly receptive, open, vociferous in their appreciation. And yeah, this is one that sort of clicked from nowhere, being just turned out to be a great night. Yeah, it's a good performance from us. Felt good. You just kind of got in the moment and stayed there.
Yeah. Good. Excellent. Sort of flipping it to the other end then, what about best music festival you've ever been to?
Well, I really enjoyed, it was probably the first one I went, definitely the first one I went to was a thing called Loch Lomond, I think it was about 1979.
Right.
And
I remember that.
I think it only lasted for 2 seasons. I think the first season was better. My friend Neil, who played bass in the first band I was in, Friends Again, he said, this was fantastic. He'd gone in probably 78. I think it was 79. We went the Jam, the Eurythmics.
Oh, okay.
No, sorry, not the Eurythmics, the Tourists.
Okay.
Pre-Eurythmics. Some sort of hippie prog rock bands and things. And I think it was my first experience of a fest, camping out.
Yeah.
I think we were meant to go for 2 nights. We only survived one because we kind of loved it, but hated it. We camped on the worst spot possible. Like, we didn't bother checking for rocks and all that kind of stuff. Then there was bodies bouncing off the tent in the middle of the night. It's all kind of scary. And then the plainclothes undercover police guys were going around, but they had that look which was very popular, the green army jacket with the wee cannabis leaf on the lapel.
Yeah.
Any hash boys, trying to sort of entrap you, putting their head in your tent. But yeah, that was memorable. I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
But I
You
do
remember?
remember the music was quite gusty as it can be in a
Yeah.
Scottish summer's day. I remember the kind of half all the brightness seemed to be blown away every quite regularly through the jam set. I was like, really enjoying them. Then suddenly the sound would disappear with
Right.
the wind. It was like
Yeah.
it was very bizarre. Probably an underpowered sound system or
Yeah,
something.
absolutely. Yeah.
Someone cutting corners. But yeah, that was good. And I've been to Tea in the Park. I didn't. I wouldn't rush back to another festival. I think it's a rite of passage.
Yeah, agreed.
But
Yeah, absolutely.
that
Okay,
was my best one.
thank you. Couple to finish then. So your favourite live music venue?
Favorite live. Well, I've got to say the Barrowlands. That's an answer I'm sure you'll have a lot
Yeah, I've had a
as a
few. Yeah,
Glasgow fan. Yeah, it's
yeah. But that's there's a reason for that, isn't there?
yeah,
You
it's
know,
just
it's
if you get the right kind of band, the right band in there, it can just really click.
yeah,
Great atmosphere. I do
yeah,
miss the Apollo. I mean, if it was historic venues, I would have to say the Glasgow Apollo.
right.
So that was something else. That was
Yeah,
quite
me
something.
too. Yeah, my
Yeah.
first ever gig was the Apollo as well,
All
like
right.
yourself.
Who was that?
It was
Are we allowed
Rush.
to ask? Rush. Well, yeah. Well, Paul
Yeah.
McGeechan would be at that. My good friends. He would have definitely been at that one.
Oh, good.
You went to see Rush. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
always seek any Rush fans I can find. There's
Yeah.
not many
You're
of them.
massive. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
When we first enrolled him
yeah,
to play keyboards for friends again, he was very much the long
yeah,
Rush-like hair, the
yeah,
mane
yeah,
of
yeah,
hair,
yeah,
the prog rock albums under his.
yeah.
We were punks. It was just he was the only guy in town with a keyboard. But yeah,
Yeah,
big Rush
but
fan, big
Apollo
Rush
was
fan.
yeah, it was
Yeah,
amazing,
quite
especially
something.
the stage, wasn't it?
Oh
The
yeah, it was
high
a
stage,
huge, very high
huge,
stage. Must be 20 feet up or something. Yeah,
absolutely.
wow.
Okay, couple of tough ones to finish. The
Oh,
best ever gig that you've been to?
oh boy. Wow. Best ever gig. Um, well, say I know I one of the middle times I saw Bowie was at the Barrowlands, round about must have been 97, I think. So he
Right.
was in his, even though he was in his drum and bass, it was a great gig. Yeah, I'll go with that one. I loved
Mm,
that. Partly was the setting.
mm,
Um, and the last time I saw Bowie was in the Hydro, and I'm not a fan of these big sheds. I
right.
just think they're a bit soulless. Though having said that, a strong contender would have to be David Byrne at what's the Hydro? Was that in the
At the
Hydro?
Hydro.
Yeah, because it
Yeah.
didn't feel like the Hydro. In my
Yeah.
mind, I'm thinking, was it the Hydro? Was it he kind of brought what felt like his own theatre into that space? And that was an extraordinary gig.
Yeah. I think I was at that maybe
Yeah,
three years ago.
just
Yeah.
before about the year before the lockdowns. Yeah,
That's right. It was
yeah,
amazing.
that
Yeah.
was incredible. That was incredible. Yeah,
Yeah. Some
I was lucky
performer.
enough to meet him after the show. Well,
Wow.
but it's just what do you say? It hasn't been said to someone like does that
So
timeless quandary.
what
Well,
did you
great
say?
gig, David. Are you're trying to just phrase it? There is no original way to say that. Was thank you. You've heard it a million times. Thank you, but
Right.
just got the David Byrne the look. It's like
Yeah.
it's okay. I'll just shuffle off now. But no, it's it was
Yeah, it was amazing.
nice to shake the great man's hand. But that was a
Absolutely.
fantastic show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And last one live album that everyone should own a copy of.
Okay. I would go back to the Velvets for 69 Live. Velvet Underground 69 Live is a great album. A
Perfect.
double as well.
Yeah, good value.
Yeah, good value. Yes, indeed.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's it.
Chris, that was absolutely brilliant, mate. Thank you very
Brilliant.
much.
Thank you, Brian.
Enjoyed
Pleasure.
that. Yeah,
Great.
cheers. Thank you.
Thank you.